that one.
Right, so we've got our last speaker now. And he's going to speak to us on increasing connectivity across the county.
No, certainly not.
Right. Take it away, Anne.
So the moral of the story is never ever email Andy with a suggestion, and a note goes out and says, what do you think we can cover? And you think you're doing a good thing by saying, maybe we could cover this, and you get a response back saying, yes, thanks for volunteering. And then the next part was, put me on at the last slot again. But actually, I think this has probably worked out quite well. So I'm not feeling this is a graveyard shift. I feel like I'm bringing together what's been probably all of the other talks. So there probably was method in Andy's.
Absolutely.
So in terms of this part, I guess for me, the reason I raised this as an issue, when I was completing my dissertation, my degree, one of the things I really struggled with, and I focused on the Durham and Medway valleys and talking about bathhouses, was actually how on earth I managed to obtain any piece of information which didn't require me having to take probably more steps across the internet than I probably realised I'd need to. And it's because even when you look at the Kent HER site and you're thinking, oh, this is really good, I've got a list. And then you do another search and then you get, oh, here's a commercial report over here, or there's something buried over there. And you really struggle to then understand the county in its fullest sense. And for me, that made me quite nervous in some respects, because I like data. I love feeling that I've got something tangible to work with and something that's quite credible. And my bibliography doesn't want to look too long. Well, it started to extend and extend and extend. And what I think, and we talked a bit about this earlier, this is a big county. It's a big county. There's lots of little pockets of stuff. So those of us that do lots of the Durham Valley stuff, you know, we're over here, and we kind of then sometimes we'll do some bits with other groups, and some of us are multi-members with ODAS, and we're doing bits with Drop. You know, we are, I guess, as a whole county, there's so much going on. So this was kind of where I started. Help.
Yeah.
So,
try it now.
So Kent, and this is the problem. And I've got, you know, multiple maps. We've got Kent when it was across the other side of the Thames at one stage. So it's confusing. And I apologise in advance for one of my children got into this. Like, yeah, never asked them to do moving slides. Thank you. This is the GAC member who decided that she wanted to take some. But you know, the county has been many names. I'm probably sure I've clicked all of them now, but I have. But it has been many names. So even searching, it's great. We've got things like the county group who look after Kent historical names and try and make some sense of that. But to some extent, you know, we are wading through lots of information. So in terms of trying to make some sense, I thought, well, we've got boundaries. You know, we know where we stop and start as of today, but that has moved, that has shifted. So trying to understand the county can have challenges in itself. We have material evidence, and we've heard about the store loads of material that we've got, and you know, we're wading in pottery and CBM, and you know, what do we do with it all? But we have material evidence. We have historical primary sources. And Gerald's got I'm looking at this wonderful set of resources and sources that we've got here. But again, how do you draw on those? How do you pull them together? We have living memory and storytelling. And I think actually Gerald was that slot earlier. He stood here and talked about the things that he is involved in. And we need to make sure we've captured those stories, because if we don't, then we'll all say, well, Gerald, I'm sure, spoke about that a few times, but you know, we need to make sure we've got that somewhere. And Keith's experiences, we are very lucky. We are surrounded by people who have been doing this for a long time, but we need to make sure it makes sense for us as a whole. And then the archaeological resources, and I guess, what do I mean by that? And this is where I guess my work kind of got really difficult doing the dissertation. I came to the KES website quite a lot of times, and it was at the wrong point. It was in development, and that made life hard. I had to ask lots of friends who had art cants going back to probably 1858 for pages that I couldn't get off of the website. It really showed them we're having this discussion about digital. If it's not available, crikey, it's a pain. And so, you know, that goes back to that discussion about having some stuff that's printed. But the website's starting to get some really good shape now. But it was really interesting. This website in itself says, you know, it's to promote advances in knowledge of Kent's past by fieldwork, documentary research and publication. And it's publication that's a real challenge as well. It's about what we can actually access. But publication has also changed. And I'll talk about that at the end. But it's something I kind of want to start off in terms of a bit of a topic, because we've kind of skirted around it a little bit in some of the other bits and pieces. For me, there are resources out there. You know, Odas, you know, love their website because I can go and get stuff off of there. Cat's website's fantastic. Drop have got some stuff on. You know, ArtCant's great. We've got Kent LiDAR. We've got ADS. There's nothing worse when you go into ADS and you see a link and you click it and you seem to go around another circle of clicking and it doesn't take you anywhere because there's no published actual link behind it. But it's the stuff that's relevant to the county I live in. How can I not get hold of this? Where is it sitting? It's lost somewhere. So it's really frustrating. That's just to go touch on that slightly. So I like to think about archaeology as a simple task of excavating things. But no pit is simple, is it really? And we know that. You can see, I've got a pit and it's, you know, 1 metre wide, and by the time you finish it's 3 metres wide, and before you know it, it's actually needing shoring up because it's gotten so big. And the problem with pits, and I think this is probably the problem of, you know, where we all are, and I think being here today, having lots of, and I think the coffee chats are really good, it's just how many pits are we excavating across the county? And we've started to talk about the fact there are 70 affiliate groups. And I know, interestingly, in between us having this chat, Andy, Craig, thank you, Michael, because he's raised this. Craig's also messaged out to the affiliate group saying, well, we need to understand what we're doing. So we've got 70 affiliates. And we don't quite know, but as ourselves, but I don't know what one affiliate's doing versus another. I'd love to, love to know. It's probably a rich source of information. But we've got this variation. We've got historical groups and we've got archaeological groups. And the question is about who's holding that information, how relevant and up to date the information is. Has anyone touched it for a while? Who's storing it? So we're into the same layers of discussion that we've been having all day actually. But you know, it's about us as the KAS trying to perhaps pull all of this together. The affiliates themselves are typically community based, and this does reflect their membership, but also the content that they cover. So it's on your doorstep, you'll talk about it, and that's probably helpful because it means that we're keeping some of that discussion going. So what we did was a quick survey, and thank you to Andy and Anne for setting that up, and thank you to those groups that did respond, because actually it was quite useful. Well, we wanted to understand who was doing actual live work, be it archaeological or historical. We also asked the question as if any activity that was taking place had resulted in published work, and if work wasn't published, why not? What were those challenges and obstacles? Because if we can't understand the county and what's happening within Kent, then how do we understand actually the story of it? Are we then going back to the antiquarian data, which is dangerous? Some of that's dangerous. Some of that antiquarian report writing we can't even work out exactly where some of those excavations took place because the positions in the landscape have changed, or they just didn't record it correctly. So we don't always have reliability things that are slightly older. So the survey came back and said thank you to those groups that did respond. Unsurprisingly, the historical societies tend to focus on local information, lots of recording of activity, as well as talks within their community. So they are great at kind of repeating and ensuring there's that ongoing sharing of information about the history of that area. And sometimes they'll go and talk about archaeological sites, they'll do walks and talks. So there's a sense of trying to keep the ideas going and the information shared across, and hopefully to the next generation, really. When archaeological affiliated groups can undertake field work, this again is community-led. For those that can't do that, it's interesting. One in particular said, we don't feel we can do field work because we don't have a professional archaeologist that we can lean on to kind of ask, are we doing it correctly? And actually, I think that's brilliant because in a way, there's not someone just digging holes for the sake of digging holes and they're not sure what they're going to do with it. So in some respects, I think that's to get to that point and know we'd rather not dig for the sake of being called an archaeological group is actually a good thing. But what there has been is some really good networking. I mean, Swag, you are kind of, started it off brilliantly this morning, talking about the fact that you're kind of a bit on tour. I said, if we charge JT out, so I'm sure he could probably fund Swag's excavations for the next 10 years. But I mean, it's brilliant that that can happen. You're dealing with flot stuff as well. So that just shows the value of having great networks. What was also then made me think was, well, if you don't network across the affiliates, why not? Is that because you're nervous too as a different group? Is that because it's territorial? I'll be honest, it can be a bit territorial in the county. I think we've probably all had experiences where someone says, oh, that's a rubbish group over there. Quite sad in a way, but that's because no one really has the best expertise. We're all doing our own thing, trying to make, I think, do the thing we love doing. But it's just perhaps worth flagging that up. And then we talked about that specialist skill set. So, you get a mention in my presentation as well. So other results, and this was about the publishing part, and I guess this is perhaps something to really think about. People didn't publish, partly because of the access to specialists issue. And I think we've heard about that this morning. Andy gave some great numbers earlier on about how much it will cost to get access to specialists. I think what's also interesting to think about, certain specialist units have big assemblages that they're working through from commercial units. And as a community group, you could be in a very long queue and you may not get your stuff back for some time. So if you really are relying on the pottery that's in your, you've excavated to give you some sense of phasing and dating, the problem is you may not get that for some period of time because it's sitting in a very long queue with a specialist. Skills gaps within the volunteer group, and that's the thing, being volunteered, we aren't turning up to volunteers, I suppose as volunteers being checked off saying, well, you can join this group only if you've got any of the following skill sets. Can you draw? Oh, sorry, you can't join. Actually, these are community groups, they are for networking. And I think we've talked about the benefit of why they're great groups, but it is holding people back by not having people that can draw, do some of the analysis using computer packages. It is about what you do with the data that's really important as well. Sometimes part of the issue to publication is understanding and interpreting the archaeology that's been found. And I think that's another piece. There's a lot, we are brilliant at hypothesizing, particularly stood next to a trench and 10 people can stand, they're all having a different view on the water is in the trench. So at some point, someone has to be able to say what it is. And I think part of the challenge is, I think probably, from what I've got, who are the other people I've spoken to, being conclusive, being able to say, it is this. We've made that decision, we're happy, and it tells us the following. That's also then from planning and recording as well. So there's a piece around there. Not everybody likes planning, not everybody likes recording. Sadly, it's a big part of archaeology. And finally, is putting some of the current insights in archaeological trends. Now, this is a word that's quite, difficult. A trend might mean it's current thinking for now. Trends can change, but also it can also mean that the narratives that we've been talking about for some time may have a big impact on a particular site. So if someone isn't aware, and we're going to deem this as a, Roman site that finished in, the 3rd century, and the pottery all comes along two years later back from the specialists, and actually the pottery is going through until the 5th century. And someone says, well, no, that can't be possible because Romans kind of started to ship out in the 4th century. Well, we kind of need to flex and be able to say, well, the pottery is selling something else. And that's about knowing actually that the timeline for Roman site usage is kind of continuing through that Anglo-Saxon period. So I think that's probably quite telling. And then publishing is an issue. So coming on to publishing and the value of it. I mean, the value of publishing, from my perspective, is the bit that actually should really interest us. The digging is brilliant and the finding is fabulous. But the understanding, I think, really is the bit that makes a difference. It tells us a story of the county that we're in. And like I say, the boundaries are more modern. and the movement across that landscape is, changing all of the time. But if we publish, we understand it better, and it doesn't really matter which part of the county we're in then. I think what's always interesting is the debate about where the Romans really landed. You can read 3 different, publications that might debate between Richborough and Pegwell Bay. And what's really interesting is it's nothing conclusive, but it means that, something's published that offers both options. It means that you can have a discussion about it. So it's better to sometimes publish than not. So that then takes me into that debate on what and where to publish. I don't know if as archaeologists, we've kind of not realised that we're still producing our written reports in the same way. Maybe we have tied ourselves up in knots as a, and I say profession, because it is a profession, about what a final report looks like, a conclusive end report looks like, that it has to have drawings. It's almost quite ironic that those drawings for typologies, particularly taking pottery, are still the preferred presentation of that information. We're not using digital. I mean, we don't really see that replacing things. And the challenge becomes with people saying, I can't produce a report because I've got anyone to do my drawing for me. So we're in this kind of catch-22 that we're actually using quite old methods of publication and sort of deciding what might be in a publication. And that's archaeology almost. So what should we publish and how do we kind of keep on top of what's coming out there? My thanks to MAG actually, because they gave a really kind of a lovely view, and we were chatting, Steve and I, about how much they publish on Facebook, and they've got a very active soundbite, regular set of information that comes out to say, here's just enough for you to all know what we've been up to. And there's a question around whether that's actually what more of us should be doing. Do we only tell everyone what we've done when we've got to that very end stage? And sometimes I think people do feel that we should only actually provide any information when we have a conclusive report. Or do we understand actually it's okay not to be conclusive when we're just sharing bits of information? And maybe actually that's a really good way to keep interest going, but also to share ideas across the county, and through KAS, I think, to some extent. So website updates, interim reports, how can we better use those maybe? Social media, and Andy's talked a lot about that. I know he is like the guru of the KAS social media platform. But actually, KS aren't putting affiliate group stuff through yet. You'll link
if it gets sent to us, we will absolutely, but we don't get that much drive.
Through. So it's
what if I went to my Facebook and can I share that to Cass?
I believe we haven't said we haven't said it so that you can't, but you should be able to if you are a member of, as long as MAG.
Oh, yes, I mean, what should be their permission?
If MAG's Facebook allows you to share externally, then yes, you should be able.
Can any other group do that? If when they publish something on Facebook, to share it automatically?
If it's related to Kent and it's and that group allows it to be shared
on the Cass website.
Yeah, if it goes on our Facebook, it will then end up on the website. Yeah, so try it and email me if it doesn't work, and then I'll change our.
I don't see anything for a month. I'll let you know.
Yeah.
But that in itself is a really, if more of that were happening, that could actually be a really good way to get more up to date, real time information. So over to you. How do we? I mean, I guess this is the some conversation that's been there in every presentation so far today. What quick wins, what easy things can be done so that through this wonderful mass of 70 groups of organisations that sit within the KAS umbrella of work and activity, how can all those things really start to feel that they're connecting with one another, but also what role does the KAS need to play in that to bring that to life and to enable everyone to kind of actually be aware of what everyone else is doing, because it's a big county and it can't obviously always wait for final reports to come out. Over to you.
On sort of like publishing, I mean, my personal view is that if you're doing an excavation over a few years, then at minimum you should be publishing an interim report after every year. And it doesn't have to be the most comprehensive thing out there. It doesn't necessarily have to have all your drawings or any analysis of the finds or anything like that. But just so there's a record that can be referenced by other people. If you're doing research and you need to plonking a reference to something that you've read. You can't necessarily do that with social media, but if there's an interim report, at least there's that paper trail.
Yeah.
And if for whatever reason the site doesn't go any further, or for any reason, you've still got some, I wouldn't say official record, but there is that paper trail.
Yeah, and if you run out of funds, I mean, that's the biggest thing, isn't it? If someone runs out, they can't get to that final stage of publication, that interim approach is really necessary. Anything else?
We've got a new affiliate section on the KES website. So if you go to Society Affiliates, every one of our affiliates now has its own blog. So it gathers all of those magazine articles, all of the art articles, all of the things they've ever been involved with that have been published by the KES, and it publishes it into a series of blogs. So that's one of the things we're trying to do, and we're trying to reach out to those affiliate societies to get in touch. So if anyone is friends with those affiliate societies, not everyone's on email, not everyone's etc., but get to us. We're slowly getting through all of them.
Yeah, I think Craig sent out an email to 180 groups, which obviously not all of those are affiliate groups. They are just groups active in the county, to find out actually, are they active? How do they get in touch with us, and that sort of thing. So if you haven't heard from him, because you're shaking your head, ping Craig an email through the website and let him know send him your swag email address.
And do the affiliates know that this is happening? Have they all had we've done this for you?
We're trying to get in touch with them all. Yeah, we do need to do our big publicity drive. It's going to go in the magazine and the newsletter and go out to people that way. We've been trying to, we have got a spreadsheet with these email addresses, some of which are about 10, 20 years old. And so, yeah, it's a bit of a process. It's a bit of a fragmentary process to get in touch with them. But that we will be putting that out very shortly and saying, get in touch. Yeah.
I think it's been great to the way everybody's been talking, all the residents have been talking about public learning and our own groups and what we can do together. I'd like to go back to the beginnings of the Fieldwork Forum, which started because before the KES was reorganised, the Fieldwork Committee used to consist of representatives from a large number of active archaeological groups. And the Fieldwork Committee meeting used to be very, very long, because at least half the meeting, probably more, was taken up by representatives talking about what their groups have been doing. When it was slimmed down, the committee was slimmed down, the Fieldwork Forum was at that point formed in order to take over that kind of role. And it never, I was involved at that particular point. It never really quite managed it, but it was what we attempted in the early days, was to actually have representatives from the groups to come and talk about what was going on. So there was networking and communication about what was going on. And it came back to me earlier in the year, or last year, when I was at the Roman Society Reconnecting Roman Britain event, which is an annual event where mostly amateur groups come together and there's a whole day of just very short talks of people talking about what they're doing, what they're doing with their own local excavation things. And I think something like that, whether under the guise of the forum or just a day, something would be really useful just for everybody to get together and say, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, I think building on that, we did do the recent work in the Darren Valley conference in November. And that proved very, very successful. So I think something along those lines of a local group conference led by the groups, with KES literally just providing a venue and facilitating. Yeah, great idea.
So just about a regular update.
Yeah.
Just talk about our talk.
Yeah. We have, well, I'm speaking for all of KES here, but as the person running our social media and with Keith organising a lot of these events, no problem doing that, and yeah, we will get
It was very successful.
Yeah.
We did this going
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, we did.
I think there was one talk about, again, going back to Kent being so large, is it might have been worth doing two, one for West Kent and one for East
That
Kent.
is always the challenge, and this is one of the things that built off from the Darren Valley one, was the idea of doing regional You know, so maybe the conference next year, Keith, we were talking about maybe the Isle of Thanet, Margate, that area, and then doing somewhere else. And
Too far.
no, well, exactly. This is always the thing. We can never settle on a location that everyone is happy
Well,
with.
this is one, you know, maybe two is the answer.
Yes,
Not
yeah.
for this, not for Fieldwork, but
No.
if you're talking about places where we have one of
Yes.
these camps.
No, absolutely. A local community group led conference forum type thing. Absolutely.
Nothing is formal.
No, but of that kind of layout. Yeah,
And again,
absolutely.
you can share expertise with various groups and they can share, well, we can do this.
And that's
way, we can
probably
do
the
that way.
place for local groups as well to raise
Yes.
these sorts of challenges on a more informal basis. But yeah, absolutely.
Saying get local help share it.
I mean, sorry,
Another aspect of that though is rather than getting, because I was at one of the sessions of the round, which was very interesting hearing about what other groups were doing. I'm here today, I was at the one about working with Darren. I think it's always interesting to know what other groups are doing in other areas. However, I wonder if there isn't scope for trying to do some slightly more sort of workshop-y type things, looking at a particular issue. For example, I mean, we now have a lot of medieval pottery. We know a lot about it. It is published, and I'm interested in trying to think more about what it means. What does it mean about trade routes? What does it mean about contact? What does it mean about where the markets might have been, where it was made, and which we ourselves obviously have only limited insight into because we're working in one quite small area. Now I know, obviously, I'm sure Randall Manor must have loads of medieval pottery, but I don't know what they've got. Since, you know, I haven't seen it
We're
published.
going to bury it.
Yeah, and I mean, the stuff came out from Jerusalem, and the stuff came out from Lincoln Castle, there was stuff, and this is only in West Kent, and there's stuff, no doubt, coming out of other places. And I'd be really sort of interested to think about how can we actually, can we learn anything? Are the patterns different? Is there something different in different parts? What do we now think about where this stuff is moving to and from? It's thinking about whether there's the scope of that sort of targeted discussion. Otherwise, if we just get together and do some slides on what we've done recently, great. But you know, at the end of it, you sort of think, well, what have we learned from that? If there were to be sort of a Roman event, then what are we finding out about similar things, really? Patterns, what sort of material have we got? We've got old sites. Our current sites are written up. Our old sites from the 1980s often aren't. When the society was inexperienced, people didn't quite know how to get it to that final stage. We've been dusting down some of those and finding all kinds of material in stones, pottery, all sorts of stuff. Now, how can we actually integrate that with what other people have been finding and what other work's going on? And I'm a bit concerned that I mean, we need the social media and what we're, you know, we don't particularly use social media, but nonetheless, it's interesting to see people's social media about what's going on and what's happening. It's interesting to hear about what's happening as a comment about what people are doing. But the bit I feel I'm sort of missing is, do I understand what it means? Now, I think that's quite difficult to do. It's probably difficult for the community group itself. I was just thinking, should I be organising a conference on medieval pottery? But I don't know sort of quite how to go about doing that. So how could we progress on that? Is that something where the university interest can help us? Is it something, I mean, this is an open question, but I would like to see some of that sort of thematic stuff being done. Not instead of perhaps, but as well as some of the points you made.
Well, on kind of to add to that, we do have as part of the Archaeological Research Group a number of study groups, special interest groups within the Archaeological Research Group. So we have a pottery group, we have a flint group, but they're not active.
Right.
Because
I think one of the issues is I don't know what the Archaeological Research Group does do.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you belong to it other than by sort of, I mean, there's a bit of a sort of gap between that sort of world. And
yes, no, absolutely, and I think between Keith and myself, that's something we need to advertise more and better, and which we're trying to do. So we do put on conferences, and we are happy to help facilitate conferences. It doesn't have to be one that we set up ourselves. The KAS can help facilitate affiliate member groups to run their own conference. If you wanted to run a local medieval pottery conference, we could facilitate that. But we could also quite easily run thematic workshops of that
I'm
sort.
wondering if the start point is that the society needs to run some more like a
Yeah, I mean, the
medieval
society will
conference.
have the contents that the local groups may not.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're finding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if there was, we were talking earlier this morning about perhaps, investing in some specialist input at some point. I mean, perhaps one way might be that it is possible to get a specialist on whatever it is, Roman pottery or flint or something, who can help the society and the rest of us
Yes.
sort of make the most of that, and that might be a way of moving some of the ideas forward.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we have done a few in the past, Keith. We did Flint at Leeds Court. Did we do a pottery? We did a pottery one as well at one point, didn't we? Yeah, so we have done them. It's more down to things like venues to find somewhere of the scale that you're thinking of, a proper thematic workshop with maybe led by a couple of specialists looking at pottery from
People
different
bringing
groups
in
and
with
what
stuff and
their
this kind
ideas
of
are. Yeah,
Perhaps giving some
It's-
thoughts
it's
of our own. But then people
absolutely,
might
yeah.
help us
It's-
move it to that next stage.
it's finding venues. Now that we've been using this more frequently for this region, it's pretty good. We would need to find maybe somewhere of a suitable scale in other areas of Kent to avoid people having to drive, get the transport all the time. But yeah, it's definitely something that we would have no problem with talking to groups about and looking into how we set that up.
Louise, sorry, you were.
Yeah, just want to say, I've often talked to the case about training because there are lots of small groups that can't afford things like GPS. I gather GPS is about 40,000. It's the best in the world. If you've got X hundred groups in Kent, whatever, you can't get around all, etc. So I think there's elements of teaching people how to survey, how to plan, how to draw. But I'm also thinking, you said about drawing observations, etc. I bet you bottom dollar there'll be lots of people who do art groups, who do art, love drawing. Okay, so I'm also thinking, something like Marshall Street, is there any reason why the KAS couldn't offer maybe at some points in the year, maybe a sort of 10-week course on base? You've got a student working at the moment.
Yep.
10-week course where you get somebody from various groups coming who enjoys their drawing, who actually pushes it onto the skills of archaeological. How you do that? Like you did 10-week animal bone course. That's what I did at the Institute of Archaeology in London. Human bone. So there are elements where you could start to spread that. I've done lots of courses in that Marshall Street. That's a really great place. Parking
Yeah.
there are those kind of things that, and therefore I do think that's what needs to happen now, because chaos has got so many arms and things it can do. I think a mapping exercise is what is the purpose of chaos? What are we trying to do? If we're a kind of mother organisation for Kent with all these different affiliate groups, what can we offer? We know we've got to generate some money. What skills have we got we can offer and do and usher up?
No. And these are all things that the KS are considering. On what skills do we have? What skills do our affiliate members have? Our partners have that we might be able to offer for, like we say, courses, workshops, practical training sessions. Because that particularly with like Christchurch students and UKC students, that's the one thing that we get told repeatedly, is that they want access to physical training sessions, with whether that be pottery or geophys or the like. It does come down a lot of the time to logistics and cost. I'm glad you said the Marshall Street's a great venue. Not everyone agrees for obvious reasons. The parking isn't ideal. So it is finding things like venues and communicating to it as well, getting member groups to actually know that we are offering that.
But plenty for the trustees. Charles.
Yeah.
Can I second the idea of something before about interim? I think Elizabeth mentioned that in the old days, the Fieldwork Committee in our camp would often have these long publications, often just a paragraph, on various sites. Researching some sites, I found that actually the only information in the 30s and 40s, for instance, was a paragraph of an interim report in our camp. If it weren't for that, we wouldn't know any information. In an ideal world, obviously, everything gets a definitive report. We know that doesn't happen. I think interim reports either on our camp, or if this works, if people can put them up on the list of affiliates, providing that carries on and can remain there for the rest of the time, would be great.
To add to that, we do have the KS magazine and newsletter as well, which for short summary statements of, we're this group, we've been doing this excavation, these are our, discoveries in a short paragraph. Craig is, as the newsletter and magazine editor, always happy to receive things from groups.
I think those are great, but
yeah,
will they be online forever? I suppose we never know.
we never know that forever. But yes, that is, longevity is the challenge in all these things.
Just on that topic, we are trying to work out where the KS fits in the big milieu, and we're finding a lot of these groups closing down as well. So Romney Marsh Research Trust was a few years ago. Isle of Thanet's, I'm going to get the
Archaeological Society.
The Archaeological Society have just recently closed. So it was something we're hoping to do, is to be another port of call from the ADS. So the ADS is great for reports and formal data sets and etc. etc. We're trying to think of whether we can be that networking space, not at a lower level necessarily, but a more local level. So again, if anyone is aware of a group that's about to close or an archive that needs to be kept available or something like that, that's the things that we're very, very interested in. And we're basically, well, it's as fast as I can work through it, but we make available hundreds of articles every day, historical articles and things like that. So it's the only problem is that there's tens of thousands to do. So,
and that's just the ones we know about.
Yeah, just the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay, you done?
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Thank you for that. You summed up a lot of what I was going to do, so that's good. This is about Kent being a big county. It is. It takes me an hour to drive up here. The geographical centre of Kent is Lenham. Okay, Lenham's got a very nice village hall that's paid for by the rail people. Trouble with Lenham is it's very regularly used by the locals. Good car park though, so we did inquire about them with Lenham before. It seems to be well used and hard pressed to get the day. I think they're going to. Lenham is where we should be, so everyone's got the same distance to come. Good bit of Lenham. It's quite a nice place. Anyway, I thought it's been a really good day. This. There's a few ideas come out. I think that we can do something about quite easily. Without doubt, a lot of it requires somebody to give us £20 million. Just as soon as we get that, we can start all these grander plans. I thought Andy gave us a very interesting idea about where the museum in Kent might go, not go as the case may be. And I did wonder actually, obviously the language of the 1850s is different language we use today, and I did wonder whether the call for material to be collected by these various people, perhaps they were really thinking in modern terms of an archaeological repository rather than a museum, but museum was the word of the day, as it were. And of course, archaeology itself was changing that in 1850, 1860, they would only keep the whole Roman pots, not the sherds, by and large. So what was being talked about is different because archaeology is different now. And indeed, in those early days, the difference between what we call local history and archaeology wasn't very clear. The Kent Archaeological Society does have this tradition of being historian and archaeologist all rolled into one. The Society of Antiquities in London was the same. They do heraldry as well. So it's very much preserving the old thing, but you can't split archaeology from local history. And I think at local level in particular, it gets very integrated. So very often there is a local historian, got somebody to contribute to the local archaeology and the other way around. So that's all good stuff. So I've heard some really interesting stuff today. So one of the things I was going to do is ask you what you want to do next time. So we've got two ideas on the list, which is sort of the day study school of medieval pottery supply across Kent, maybe. I can't think of a lot of people who can lead that. I can think of two. Neither one lives in Kent. Well, we get them up for the day. So that's one. And I thought this idea of doing a quick summary overview of what the local groups have been up to is also another one. So maybe that's kept us through two forums for the next couple of years going. So I think really, it's been a very interesting day. I did wonder how it all going to pan out. Enjoyed it very well. Nice to see a few familiar faces and a few unexpected faces. I think this is about trying to get the youngsters in, something we need to be pushing more. And certainly, when I was 16, there was old gaggers who used to sort of run around site and give piles of rubble shift, which we would do. We don't seem to be seeing the youngsters coming in so much now. We do need to change that because we're all going down the road, I'm afraid. We are. So that's something we can try and get some youngsters involved with. And I think there's plenty to think about today. If you get any ideas, I don't know you, I've come up with stuff 3 days later in bed, what I should have said at the time I didn't. So if that happens, if you drop Andy a quick email, I meant to say at the meeting but forgot. We'll have to do it. And what we should do, the various things that have come out today, we'll try and draw all those together into some sort of document, which we will, I think, probably pass on to the KS trustees so they can see what's to be done, and also perhaps try and get something on the newsletter, website, or something like that, with a few ideas. And that itself might draw some new ideas from people who haven't come today. I think we had a good turnout today.
On the note of trustees, there are spaces if anybody is interested in becoming a trustee for the KAS. Do submit, your level of interest if you'd like to take it on. It's 4 meetings a year, all done online, and you can help, shape the direction of the society. So,
same on the Fieldwork.
And we are also looking for people on the Fieldwork.
That's right. We've had several people leave the Fieldwork committee. Scope for anyone who wants to sit on the Fieldwork committee as well. It's exciting what we do now. There's no real exciting what goes on. Yeah. I don't know. Did anyone count?
Well, we had 52 on the invite list. And we were going to have 80 seats, but it looks like a lot more than that were filled. So I think we've probably hit at least the 52, if not more. Yeah, I think we've hit a good number out of the amount of tickets that we'd put together, which is we will, when we do the summary, we'll post how many people actually.
We need that in our report, don't we? It needs to be the first sentence of it.
Yes.
So well, one's escaped already.
Yeah, I think a couple of people.
Yeah. So that's it. Anyway, so we'll give some thought on what to do next year. I suspect it's going to be here. Do you? Maybe not.
Or maybe we'll find somewhere else.
Maybe not. That's right. One of the problems we've had is not only we've got to move around the county, we've got to find somewhere to go that we can afford. Right, that sort of limits some places. Anyway, we'll give it some thought, and it will be, I'm guessing, about this time next year, middle of March-ish, we will have another Fieldwork forum and discuss whatever we think we want to. Okay, so I think the next meeting from our point of view, we're going to have an October meeting, which will be about metal detecting in Kent and how we could integrate the metal detectorists today. Was something we thought we might include today. We thought better of it in the end for the separate conference. And the November conference, following on this idea of doing different parts of Kent. We've provisionally got in the archaeology or recent archaeology in North East Kent, either Thanet and maybe the Wilmington Shore. That will then balance up the Darren Valley. And presumably next year we'll be looking beyond that, somewhere down towards Sevenoaks. Which we'll see. But this idea of focusing on a certain part of Kent, we thought that seemed quite a good thing. It is without doubt a geographical fact that Kent is very big. We've heard it said several times today. You know, the bottom line is if you know Bromley High Street, chances are you don't know Deal High Street. Yeah, I've actually been down Bromley High Street. So you know, it's a big place. People don't tend to go to all parts of the county, so it's useful to know what's going on in different parts of the world. Okay, I think that's it, probably. When was the rugby? Half past. It's gone early.
I
So,
just won already, haven't I?
yeah, I don't. Anyway, okay, then, folks.
Okay,